Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
I'm not Brien Hanley, and he's not here. I'm Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of the Kansas State site on the 24/7 network. Big B's under the weather. If you've been following the storylines, he had a tooth pulled earlier this week, made it through most of the week, and today he woke up with a fat face. Now, I know what you're saying, but Fitz and Big B both have fat faces already. So just imagine the horror from which I am saving you by sitting in for Big B. And I'm even late doing this because I've had a strange day myself, but it's a beautiful day in the Flint Hills, and it's a beautiful day for some Big 12 football because it's Friday. And we do have a Friday night game this week, which is delightful. I've got something to watch tonight and plenty of football around the conference tomorrow as the Big 12 schedule kind of hits the home stretch here in the final 3 weeks of the regular season. Some teams will be playing all 3 weeks. Others still have a bye week. Maybe it's this week. And it's all looking very important because in some ways, every game's going to decide something, whether it's at the top, in the middle, at the bottom. There'll be some real reckoning here over the last 3 weeks. Look, I mean, what the Big 12 was after 3 weeks isn't what it was after 6, and might be the same way after 9. We'll see how that all plays out. If you don't know what we do on the Friday show, usually he and I, Big B, bicker back and forth about the games, just kind of talk about them, talk through, and we finally get to our food of the week. You know, I'm in charge today. Maybe I'll forget the food of the week because I'm in charge and I forget to do it. But I'll try to remember to do it. I promise you. But first, we need to talk about this Houston and Arizona game as I try to bring up a little bit more information here. This is a really interesting game to me because we're seeing Houston come on and play some really good football. And at this point, I'm not sure what to think of Houston. The last time I saw them, they were beating Kansas State and looking pretty good defensively. Let's be honest, really good defensively. And yet, they still aren't getting kind of the respect that they probably deserve in this conference as one of the better teams in terms of how they're playing as of late. They had a bad loss, kind of a blowout loss to Kansas, but other than that, they've been winning and winning a lot. And I think that's it's pretty indicative of what we thought we'd see from Willie Fritz's team. Maybe it took them a little bit to get going, but boy, now they are smoking. They are really turning into a problem for a lot of teams as I try to pop up the standings. Sorry about that. As we see Arizona now at 1-5 and 2-3-6 overall. I'm just going blind. It's sad. And then, of course, Houston is a surprising 3-3. So they're vying to be in the middle of the conference, which is a hell of a statement for a Houston program that is on the first year of a coach and a rebuild. If they can get up into that middle or upper half, they're 4-5 overall. They're still eyeing the potential of a bowl spot, which would be absolutely enormous for that program. And winning this game against Arizona, which is tonight at, well, I'm in Central Time, so I'll say it, 9:15 Central on ESPN. That could be a really good game. And that one's on FS1. Wow. Okay. So that Friday night game kicks off 9:15 in Tucson. If you're Arizona, you're looking for some dignity. You're now 1-5. Your only conference win was at Utah, and boy, do things change over the course of a season. We all thought Arizona had found some life and was kicking butt because they routed Utah in Salt Lake City. Didn't turn out to be that big a deal. They're both those teams now are 1-5. And as I mentioned, Houston is kind of cooking right now as they have taken out K-State, lost to KU, beat TCU before that, and they've got a win, of course, over Rice also. So they had a win over Utah between the KU and K-State games. So those 3 wins are looming large, and this is interesting. This is probably a must-win if they want to get to a bowl. Next week, they've got Baylor in Waco. So that's in Houston. And then they go to BYU to end the season. That's not an easy road to 2 wins. You better get busy this week, specifically tonight against Arizona in Tucson. Let's move on to Saturday and one of the most intriguing games simply because it's the team we thought would rule the nest, and the team we didn't expect to do what they're doing. And that one kicks off at 11 a.m. on Fox. That's right. It's 10 a.m. in Boulder. That's some early football, folks. That's not big noon kickoff, folks. That is big 10 a.m. kickoff. And that's brutal for the Mountain State teams of Utah going to Colorado. And this one, it should be a big Colorado win. It's minus 11. Yeah, we didn't talk about the odds in the other game. It's minus 1 up there. A pretty interesting stack of odds there. I don't see how Utah wins this, but we also can't really judge how Utah is going to respond to the chaos of last weekend and coming out of that. And will this fire them up, or does that kind of break them? Did they buy into the perception maybe from their upper management of their athletic department that the Big 12's out to get them and they don't stand a chance, which is a horrible message to send to your teams in competition? Or do they say, you know what, let's get defiant and play some really good football? That's the Utah I think we all expected, and we'll see if we get that. That one kicks, as I said, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central, and noon on the East Coast. So it is big 12 noon, if you want to call it that, or 10 a.m. Baylor goes to West Virginia. This is a really intriguing game against teams that are trying to maintain a status here that, particularly in the case of Baylor, is a little bit unexpected. I don't think any of us really thought that Baylor would be in the spot they are, but as Big B's been saying all season, and he said it very well, they have always looked bought in. Even when they screwed up, the coaches screwed up at Colorado, Baylor has seemed bought in. The players haven't wilted one bit. The Bears are also 3-3 on the season. And of course, you got West Virginia at 4-2 right now. And that's a little unexpected with how this team was playing earlier in the year, that all of a sudden they're rising up into that upper portion of the conference. This is a huge game for the Mountaineers. But to get to 5-2 and 6-4 overall, it'll get them bowl eligible after those non-conference losses to Pitt. Boy, they regret that one, I bet. And Penn State, pretty good Penn State team. That's okay. This is really going to come down to, can the Mountaineers continue to find ways to win? We'll see who starts at quarterback for West Virginia. They might go with a young guy and see if he can continue to spark them. You know me, I'm a big Garrett Green fan, but it looks like he's falling out of favor in Morgantown because his passing limitations are really at the forefront now. As let's be honest, teams have gotten more scouting video on him and know how to defend him a little bit better. I'm fired up for this game too. I'm fired up for this whole slate of games. There's something here for everyone. And by everyone, I mean anyone who wants to watch a game at night too, because there's 3 after dark games, not late night games, but sun goes down game. Let's try that. Arizona State at Kansas State kicks at 6. It's on ESPN. This is a matchup of 2 teams also trying to stay connected to this Big 12 race. They're both 7-2. They're both 4-2. We expect Cam Scatteraboo to be back for Arizona State. They won last week without him against UCF. They had a rally to do it, but I still think it's a real testament to what Kenny Dillingham's done in Tempe with wins now without quarterback Sam Levitt and running back Cam Scatteraboo. That's impressive. You lose those kind of ingredients off your team and still find a way to win, and you're in a rebuild. I'm buying. And I think Arizona State's a really dangerous team. But on the other side, you look at their schedule, and really the only team that they've beaten, I think, with a winning record is Texas State. They get a team with a really strong record at 7-2, although K-State fans are still a little miffed about that loss at Houston, then a week off, and now they have a chance to get back on the saddle. And if you're not familiar with the Kansas State schedule, K-State fans probably feel like they haven't seen their team play much. This will be their second home game since the start of September. That's right. They have gone 50 days with one home game. This will break that string. They're home next week with Cincinnati, as the Big 12 really gave them a strange schedule, finishing at Iowa State. Kansas State wins out. A little help with Colorado puts them in. Everyone needs help with Colorado. I don't think there's enough losses, out there for BYU on that schedule. I think they're probably safely in that spot. Colorado's in the driver's seat for the second spot, and everyone else who has those 2 losses is trying to stay there and hope that Colorado picks up a second loss. And then, of course, They win the tiebreakers with them. Then at 7 p.m. on Fox, folks, we got some. I didn't realize what great the slots are for the Big 12 this weekend. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When I came into this season, I hadn't really studied that Big 10 contract enough to know that Fox, CBS, and NBC all had exclusive windows through the day, whether it's big noon, whether it's the afternoon or the evening, and they can't run other Big 10 games at that time, which is really made for some scheduling. They can run other Big 10 games on the same platform, but not competing with them. It's really interesting. So it's opened up opportunities for the Big 12 to actually be the better programming for them in those time slots. So you've got an 11 a.m. game on Fox, and you got a 7 p.m. game on Fox Central Times as Cincinnati goes to Iowa State. Now, Iowa State, the wheels have come off as of late for the Cyclones with back-to-back losses. It's been a painful process. They were on their way to maybe the first 10-win season in school history. This team is certainly worthy of that, capable of that. And then, boom, they get smacked upside the head. They're still 4-2 and 7-2, a record that matches Kansas State and Arizona State. But they need to find a way to hold off Cincinnati because the Bearcats are still praying maybe that they can win back-to-back games by going to Iowa State and Kansas State and totally changing the race. Maybe that can happen. I don't see any 3-loss team making it up high enough to get into the Big 12 title game, but Cincinnati certainly can play a role in spoiling the hopes of an Iowa State and then a Kansas State. That is going to be a whale of a football game. Of course, I'll be busy covering the Kansas State-Arizona State game. I gotta tell you something. I am so excited to see Cam Scatterboo in person. This is my favorite college football player this season. And I'm going to be honest. I want to start up an all men's fan club, the Scattaboys. I think it'd be a big hit. I don't know if it'll catch on. We could, let women in too if you want to be one of the boys. That's always fun. Then our final game is a really intriguing game because on paper, you look at the records and you're like, oh, this is a mismatch. A total mismatch. Kansas goes to BYU, the number 6 team in the country, unbeaten BYU at 6-0 and 9-0 overall, and Kansas on the road 2-4 in the Big 12, and of course 3-6 overall because they stunk earlier in the season. They didn't really stink. Let's back up. Let me strike that. They stunk in the final minutes of games. This was a pretty good team that lost in the fourth quarter. Now they've got 6 losses. If they want to get to a bowl game, they want that guaranteed spot, they're going to win 3 more. And that is not going to be an easy situation for Kansas as they head to BYU for an after dark presentation because it is something else to see. I hope Kansas fans are going to Salt Lake and then up to Provo to see this game, because what BYU does at night games, particularly these after dark games, is pretty darn cool. And their team is pretty damn amazing when the lights are off like that. And they're pretty much invincible, the vampire Cougars, as they say. But Kansas is playing exceptional football. They just knocked off Iowa State. Before that, they gave K-State all the trouble they could possibly have, played better than K-State in Manhattan and lost. And before that, they have a really convincing win over Houston. They have no room to wiggle here as they've got to go out to BYU to win this game. And then they come back to home, which is Arrowhead Stadium this season as they rebuild Memorial Stadium for a game that'll be on 2:30 next weekend in Central Time against Colorado. And then they got to go to Baylor. This is not an easy road. Kansas has pulled what looks like most of the top teams in this conference this year. They have Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado, BYU, and Arizona State. It's not an easy road. And of course, Baylor is playing some pretty good football too. They have wins over Houston that lost to TCU, lost to West Virginia, probably stings a little bit. And of course, they went 1-2 in the non-con. Kansas is dangerous. You want further proof that this game can't be judged solely on the fact that BYU's at home at night and on paper with records, the much better team. BYU's a 2.5-point favorite. Vegas sees something here. Honestly, I don't see it. I don't think BYU's going to lose this game, but I think they're going to have more trouble with Kansas than what a lot of people might expect if you're just observing from 10,000 feet instead of getting down and examining the situation. Let's see what else we got here. I think I clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. And that will wrap that up for the schedule. Let me go through the odds one more time. Houston is a 1-point favorite tonight at Arizona Friday night. Utah and Colorado. Colorado's 11-point favorite. What do you think about that spread? I think it's, I'm going to be blunt, too low. So if they can keep Colorado winning, let's say by 10 or less, I think Utah's played a pretty good game. We'll see how that one pans out. It kicks off very early in the mountains. Might be a little nippy at 10 a.m. when it kicks off. Baylor and West Virginia. Baylor is a 1-point favorite on the road. Yes, we were just talking about West Virginia still being in the race, and they are an underdog at home to a team with a lesser record in their own conference. That's how crazy the Big 12's been this year. Arizona State wanders into K-State. K-State's number's down to 7.5 as I look at it now. It's been as high as 9.5. Does K-State win by more than a touchdown? That is the question. At home, they've been a lot better than on the road at times this year. And Cincinnati, Iowa State is a 7.5-point favorite. That means Iowa State's got to score some points. They better get things chugging again on the offensive side. And as I just mentioned, Kansas and BYU with amazing BYU only a 2.5-point favorite at home against a Kansas team that's just 3-6 overall. Well, that's it for this show, but I did not forget. I don't have Big B to talk me through this. And I'm going to be busy all weekend, but I just ordered from the local barbecue place. Their best meat they have, sausage. God, just cut sausage, like, quarter size sausage. It is unbelievable. I put a lot of barbecue sauce on it. I'm going to tell you a secret. I love Kansas City barbecue sauce, and I love the different Kansas City barbecue sauces, like at Joe's or Jack Stack, which is actually my favorite one to go to, Jack Stack Barbecue in Kansas City. It's got a fancier place that you can go to, and also the hole in the walls. Joe's, of course, is just absolutely famous. And the most famous barbecue place in Kansas City is either Arthur Bryant's, which a buddy of mine now owns, which is back to its original location only, or Gates. I am a huge fan of Gates sauce. A little too thin, needs a little more weight to it. But Gates sauce and those sausages are going to be fantastic this weekend. I'll eat them before the game. I'll eat them after the game. Heck, the wife's bringing them home on Friday. I might eat them while I watch a little Friday night football with the Big 12 as Houston goes to Arizona, and that is going to be very entertaining. Well, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you struggling through the non-Big B version of this. He's really good at this, folks, and we appreciate everything you do to support our channel. Make sure you are subscribing, which I should have said earlier, and make sure you also interact with this video. Any videos you see from us, click the like, drop a comment, even to say comment, because the algorithm just starts churning off of that. Well, I appreciate it, everyone, and we will be back next week with a whole new slate of shows, including Big B's Monday Roundup, and then we'll go through our little routine. There's the dog. I knew I wasn't going to get out of it with the dog. Then our Tuesday show that we do together, the Power Rankings, and off he goes into Big 12 Game Day, and also the spotlight shows and team shows that he does during the week. Big B, get healthy, get that face down to normal size, like stick it in a bucket of ice, brother. Just don't stand there for more than 2 minutes. That might be bad. I know you can't hold your breath that long. That's it for today. That's it for this week. Thank you. I'm Fitz. This has been the Big 12 Insiders.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.